Hi, I'm Sarah and I am a heteromantic ace from the UK. My pronouns are she, her, and I only found out that I'm ace a few months ago. And I've been thinking about why it's taken me so long to figure it out, You always hear these stories about people saying, I knew I was gay when I was 5. And it's just like, well, why is it taking me so long to realise that I'm ace? And the thing is that people figure out their identity at lots of different ages. And also identities can change. Maybe you might change your language. All that's completely fine. But I think one of the biggest reasons why it took me a long time to figure it out is my understanding of what being asexual means and stereotyping it to just not being interested in sex at all. And that's true for some asexual people, but not necessarily all. And I've come to learn that what asexuality means is not experiencing sexual attraction, or you might experience it a little bit sometimes, but not more rarely, or you might under certain conditions and lots of other things. There's lots of things that come under the spectrum. And then of course there's aromantics, who are less understood as well as an orientation, and that should definitely be talked about. But I also have been thinking about the role of gender stereotypes in figuring myself out. If I go back to when I was a teenager, I would stereotype teenage boys as only wanting one thing, and they would chase after girls, which is super heteronormative. And then of course we would talk about stereotypes of boys and girls without also recognising non-binary people, which is something I only really learnt about when I was an adult. And then girls were the opposite of boys, and they would be chaste and they'd be less interested in things like sex. And yet we would sexualise women as well and then shame them if they slept with multiple people, which I think is a very interesting double standard. So as I got a bit older, I had these feelings of, well, if I'm less interested in sex, that's because I'm a woman. And I stereotyped what it meant to be a woman and found myself. And then I got a bit older and I learned about feminism and identifying as a feminist, and hearing from women about how women can be sexual and how they can masturbate, and sex positivity and body positivity, all really important conversations, and they're not brand new conversations either. But where does that leave me, an ace? To give another example, I was at a conference last year where they talked about the orgasm gap and how men experience orgasms more than women. And how do we close the orgasm gap? And I was just thinking to myself, these are things that I'd want for myself, because at the time I thought I was a heterosexual woman. But something didn't quite add up, and now I kind of know why. Because I had this feeling of being a feminist means this, so I'm stereotyping what it means to be a feminist. But it didn't add up with me. And I find that still a little bit conflicting, to be honest. I mean, I'm still very new to being ace. But it's interesting to be thinking about this when I came across this book, and it's called Ace by Angela Chen. It's a great book in general, but she has a chapter talking about being a feminist and her ace identity as well. And she talks about it in much more depth and way better than I could. So I'd really recommend reading that if that is something you are interested in. But it really helped reading that and knowing that it wasn't just me feeling like that. And it doesn't mean that, these conversations don't happen, but I do find that when we talk about women's liberation, it does tend to be more about having sex. Whereas I think we need to include conversations more about, well, if you don't want sex, that's also fine. And it doesn't make you repressed, it doesn't make you conservative. It's okay to have these feelings too. So I just need to be careful about how I stereotype women or people of any gender, stereotyping feminists, because those things could end up stereotyping myself. So I'm Sarah, I'm ace, and I'm also a feminist.